He raises the chair to hit X-Pac, and who stops him but Tori, his ex-girlfriend who just cheated on him with his arch nemesis. She stops him. He turns around and he grabs her by the throat. With only 2 weeks left to No Way Out 2000, it's time for Tales from the Attitude Era. Like, there's no more No Way Out.
Yeah. How can it be 2 weeks to No Way Out? If there's no way out, there's no way out. Was there a time limit to No Way Out?
There's still a way out until 17 days from the airing of this episode.
Oh, so there's a way out until No Way Out.
Yes.
Wow. Should have used that. Oh, God. Now I'm always thinking, like, if we go in a time machine, I got a bunch of No Way Out puns.
We're at the University of Texas, Austin tonight.
Oh, that's right. My hometown now. My new hometown. Yeah.
I feel like these university shows are always a little more wild because you have more students in attendance, perhaps.
The youth.
They were very energetic tonight.
Yeah. Although I'm telling you, this year and especially this run's peak, it don't matter where you're going.
That's true.
They're off the charts. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You go to the East Coast, like 2 times in Providence, Rhode Island in 2 months, they're off the charts. You go anywhere else, they haven't seen you in Fresno. They're off. Everywhere is nuts. It's crazy.
We are really at the peak of WWE business, fandom, excitement. This is it. This is the apex of the Attitude Era.
The apex of the Attitude Era. Raw is SmackDown, is War, is Raw, is WWF.
Is Heat.
That's what I like to say. Is Heat. Is Jacked. Is Metal.
There's just been a lot of
superstars.
I've just seen a lot of comments in the last week or so on social media just declaring that this was the best era. Like, it was this era. WrestleMania 13 to 14 was getting like a lot of credit, but this is credited as peak creativity.
It's interesting. I don't know how I'm biased towards this era, but it's interesting. I think it's a peak because of not only the people involved, the superstars involved, but it's still, like I said, I like to think of like you still work to the pay-per-views. The pay-per-views still had buy rates. So meaning that you had like numbers to look at. Like nowadays, it doesn't seem like that. It's like, what are the ratings? No one cares. They're bad. There was like a formula of success, so to speak. So you're kind of like going towards like, each pay-per-view, the buy rate's huge. The numbers are huge. Keep it up. So that kind of like lifts everyone to be like, I want to be on camera no matter what. So everyone kind of bends over backwards in a good way to be like, this is huge. This is the place to be. And then the Monday Night Wars, that's another competitive thing, and WCW is going down. One could argue like once WWF bought WCW, we said this before, it's almost like the foot came off the gas a little bit. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of things that created a perfect storm of this era, arguably. And it's hard to compare. It's like sports, this with the Hogan era, of the late 70s, or, it's kind of a different animal. But I mean, I don't think that era was any less popular, explosive. And that really created the foundation for this era to exist, so to speak, Yeah,
the TV. But I think this era, the popularity is at another level, I think, in terms of mainstream acceptance and
true.
Obviously Hulk Hogan was everywhere, but it felt like it was just Hulk. Here, I feel like Kane is, like Kane could be recognized on the street with the mask or whatever, but you know what I mean? Like it's a much deeper level of celebrity. Even like, I feel the mid-carders from this era are still cashing in on
without
their
a
fame
doubt
from 25 years ago.
And a lot of that has to do with, and I always like, I don't mean to be a wet blanket of trying to explain things sometimes, but a lot of it has to do with that era built and created the pay-per-view. This era has 5 original hours of programming a week of wrestling, you know what I mean, on TV. So, it still has to pay homage to the one before. So it's a bit of an unfair comparison in ways, you know what I'm saying?
Right, and 5 hours of like competitive action, not just jobber matches.
Yeah. So there you go. So we got that settled. We if you disagree, send us $1.
It's interesting too, because I feel like Monday was such a strong episode. Everything was so hot that I feel like this was booked a little more almost like a house show, like a transition episode.
Yeah, a couple things stuck out from looking at this show again, and one of the things we talked about, which is good, is trying to get some kind of a theme. So let's face it, you're booking a lot of handicap matches and a lot of weird stuff, but if you had like a theme or some kind of through line, this one being like, the divide and conquer of the Radicalz by the McMahon-Helmsley Corporation, DX, whatever you want to call it. So at least that all the weird, you might call them Gaga matches, kind of like make sense and kind of like feed all the way through. And also we had to do some fundamental things, I think, like got to get the Radicalz their finishing holds over. You know what I mean? You got to kind of be a little redundant and reestablish them, even though everyone's, it's always that balance. Like everyone's a smart market. Oh my God, who are these guys? At the same time, like, okay, now we got to spoon feed people a little bit. Like this is, the rings of Saturn, et cetera, while, all the while still being like goofy and trying to like, get new things over and what have you. So,
right. Because of course there's a lot of fans that watched both products, WWF and WCW. But at this point in time, WWF is getting at least twice the ratings the WCW. So at least 1 out of 2 people probably don't know who these guys are. However, it's that thing like we were talking about where only really like 30% of the audience needs to know what goes on, and then they'll tell the rest of the people. Right. So I think that was part of it.
But at the same time, you still have to do that fundamental, like, oh, that's his finisher. You know what I mean?
The introductions.
That kind of stuff. Yeah.
I did like those singles matches as a form of introduction for the, and you're slowing down the pace a little. Like everything was very fast paced on Monday and last Thursday. Now it's time to just like, let's establish everyone. Also, there was a big realignment with the Radicalz, and now they're being inserted into the, I guess you could say mid-card. Or upper mid card, so you have to kind of position their feuds, and I like how organically you set up what will eventually be a 6-man tag at the pay-per-view with Rikishi and Too Cool against the Radicalz. It felt completely organic just based on how the story was going.
Yeah, and one thing too I remember too was like it's still just booking pro wrestling, and a lot of it was just like, oh, can you imagine seeing Benoit against Rikishi? Oh, huge. Enough said, stuff like that.
It was a good match for a while. Yeah. It was interesting. The show kicks off with a recap of Monday with the Radicalz turning on Cactus Jack, joining with DX, and getting their contracts. Then we immediately go into action. It's Kurt Angle versus Val Venis for the European title. Poor Val Venis. The Edge Angle gets dropped just as Edge is thrown into this tag team feud. And Val hasn't really been seen on the main 2 programs the last few weeks. He's mostly been hanging out on Heat, defending the title there. And so he's defending tonight against Kurt Angle. No feud or anything to set this up. You like clearly was just like, all right, we need to get the belt off Val. We're moving on to give Angle the heat here.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah. So Angle gets the mic, gets huge heat already before even saying anything. So like this Angle project is working very well. Obviously, significantly more over than Val Venis at this point, who's at the tail end of his gimmick. Basically, he says, "I just want you to know."
Between 2 gimmicks. That's my new pro wrestling country song. Caught between 2 gimmicks. One's on the way out. Where's the next one? I'm still working on it. Work in progress. Sorry.
I just want to say, even though I suplexed an 82-year-old pregnant woman, Kurt Angle says, I'm still a role model. He says, I swear I thought it was Mark Henry at the time.
It's my favorite thing of wrestling is to come out and describe the thing that you're hated for, which you would never really do, in defense of yourself. McMahon did it great a couple times when he would be like, I never thought I'd be back in this ring where I was, totally denigrated last week, and then he lays out exactly the horrible shit that happened to him.
Right,
so people go, yeah, it's just my favorite thing. Let me tell you,
sick.
Yeah, you made me feel like shit because you did this to me, and then you did this to me. It's like I like it. Makes me happy.
Kurt Angle says he'll give everyone a treat to become the next European champion. I know most people in Texas don't know where Europe is, but it's not your fault. It's your education system. Boy, isn't that more true than ever?
That's a shoot. Well, also part of that, which cracks me up, is especially not living in Texas, is there's so many people that know Texas history from top to bottom, but forget European history, but they know Texas history. It's like, that's a prerequisite. So,
well, Texas is as big as most of Europe, I hear. So
this is true. Bigger.
Val Venus comes out, no mic time, just gets in the ring. Angle sucks chant. So Angle is super over. It was interesting. Venus gives Angle a fisherman suplex, a perfect plex, which would eventually become one of his finishers. But Angle kicks out, and because of the respect that Mr. Perfect has gained over the years, gets a big pop because no one used to kick out of the perfect plex.
Right.
Val Venus goes to the top rope for his money shot splash. Angle hits the ropes, knocking down Val Venus, and grabs him, gives him the Angle slam, and gets the win, and is our new European champion. Title change on SmackDown.
Yep, and gives a boost to that belt just through his like insane celebrations and
right. And I like the idea of the American hero being the European champion.
Yeah,
you can have a lot of fun with that.
That's strange here sometimes and gone into the freezer European title belt.
And it's so weird. Like where is it positioned in relation to the world title and the IC title? Is it more prestigious than the IC title? Less prestigious? I guess it depends on who holds it.
Hold on, let me get an issue of Pro Wrestling Illustrated. Yeah.
Now it's completely discombobulated with all the different types of titles they have, but back then it meant something.
I know. The red title, the blue title.
Right.
Yeah, I can't keep track.
Then we have a segment backstage with DX and Radicalz conspiring. It's time to divide and conquer, boys, says Stephanie McMahon. She says Kane returned on Monday, and that big red bleep, I'm guessing the R word, brought back Paul Bearer. Let's make some matches. Tonight, it's going to be Perry Saturn taking on Grandmaster Sexay. Dean Malenko versus Scotty 2 Hotty, and Malenko quips he's going to squash the worm. Benoit versus Rikishi. Benoit quips he's got that Rikishi will regret the day he quit sumo. New Age Outlaws versus the Rock and Sock Connection, and the Outlaws make sure it's a non-title match. They don't need to be defending their titles. Right. And finally, Kane versus X-Pac, and X-Pac's like, "Come on, man, again." And Triple H is like, "Don't worry, it's X-Pac and Triple H. We're in a handicap match against Kane." Yeah. So that lays out the most of the show. Basically, is laid out right here. These are 5 matches here.
And let me just mention the fun thing we started here, which kind of came about once. I don't know if it wasn't on this show, some show somewhere. It was like the thing when you're in a hallway and you go left and someone goes left, and then you go right and someone goes right, and you can't get around, you get caught in one of those. Did one of those with like Kurt Angle and Stephanie, kind of natural. I was like, oh, let's do it again, where they were like almost flirtatious, like, oh, you go around me. Oh, and so like kind of like started this like, oh, Stephanie's got a crush on Kurt Angle, which I thought was like, which has been in the last few weeks, but it was a good little bit here where she was like looking at the monitor, just always, anytime you throw in something like Triple H, what do you that Stephanie has a crush on Kurt Angle always crack me up.
Yeah, and I feel like you kind of moved away from it, but didn't quite acknowledge it in the last few shows, and now it's kind of like you're hinting back. I guess because Angle was a little occupied with Taz.
And we kind of looked at it like the neighbor, like you don't want to like waste it right away, or what's it going to do if it's ever going to blow up into and like a lot of things, will that ever blow up into a full full blown angle, for lack of a better word,
right? Or
you can just leave it like, oh, it can be just a thing. Hey, are you looking at him? It's just an underlying thing, so it could go on forever, and and kind of just have in your back pocket. So that was exactly right. That was like, oh, so let's keep that alive. Let's throw a little nod at her. Why don't you look at him with that look, on the monitor?
So the matches are booked. We start with Perry Saturn versus Grandmaster Sexay. Perry Saturn in incredible shape. He wanted that WWF contract. He wanted to look good. I mean, he was always a great physical beast.
Yeah.
But now more so. Crowd is very hot for Grandmaster Sexay. It seems like the biggest pops he got was when he stopped wrestling and started taunting and doing dances. Like the people love watching Grandmaster Sexay's dances.
They're all over.
And they work hard. At one point, Grandmaster Sexay goes for the crossbody. Saturn ducks and Grandmaster Sexay hits the ref. The ref is down. Sexay goes to the top rope for the top rope leg drop, the Alabama Jam, and he gets the visual pin, but the ref is still out. As soon as the ref gets up, he counts and Saturn kicks out. As Sexay argues with the ref, Saturn knocks him down for the Rings of Saturn submission finish. Now, Sexay even had his leg on the rope, but still tapped out, giving Sexay the ultimate out. Like, you're really protecting Grandmaster Sexay in this match.
Yeah, it's a nice little wrinkle. It's even approved by a clean finish smart mark. Is it a clean finish? It is a clean finish. I mean, you're submitting, so technically you can't submit outside the ring, but a foot, I don't know. We'd have to really consult the rule book. You have to...
I guess it counts as a clean finish. Saturn gets the win, but it starts the pattern that all of these wins from the Radicalz are questionable. I won't say not clean. I will say questionable.
Right. Well, they're a questionable group.
There's a recap of the XFL press conference from the week prior. One quote that kept being replayed in the promo was Vince McMahon going, XFL will not be a league for panty waists or sissies.
Yeah.
I've never heard the term panty waists before.
Yeah, that's an old school one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I told you that got a little heat kind of because, you're always talking about like ideas for promos and what. And I kind of, and I agree. I feel like this too. I was like, well, I said, I think it's kind of a mistake to go after their talent or say, the NFL had billions of dollars worth of world-class athletic talent, and no one's arguing that you can call it the no fun league. In my perspective was like, attack the bureaucracy of the league, attack how the league is not fun anymore. But once you start attacking the players as like their players are sissies, ours aren't, like that's bad because you have at most a few $1 million worth of talent in the XFL versus no one was going to argue that you could put together an XFL All-Star game. They're going to be destroyed, routinely and easily by any NFL team. The caliber of NFL athlete is off the charts and not a panty waist or a sissy. So, I McMahon didn't agree. He was all hell bent on like, this is where, you know what I mean? And I don't know if that was like, the mind is too much of it's a work. It's like, it's not a work. The NFL players are not panty waists and sissies compared to the XFL players. That will never happen unless you get out the pocketbook and say, we're going to spend $10 billion and steal all the top players.
Well, I would argue even going after the NFL was a mistake. Going as hard as they did,
I agree.
Because first of all, there's no way they were going to compete with the NFL. Like you said, the talent isn't there. And if anything, it would have benefited them to work with the NFL and be like I don't know if you could do a talent trade, but like a feeder system, essentially what the current XFL is doing. Like when the XFL was recently relaunched with Dwayne Johnson and Danny Garcia owning it, I guess they merged with USFL. I don't even know what's going on. But like ultimately they're working with NFL. They're partnering. They're not like we're better than the NFL. You should just be like, we're different. Like we're going to provide something different. Like you're hungry for football. There's no football in February. We're going to bring it to you. It's going to be, and instead of saying we're going to be better than them or different, you could just be like, we're different. Like it's going to be smash mouth, old school rules, the way you grew up watching football. We're going to give everyone a concussion.
Yeah. But even I agree. But even some of that stuff is like bullshit because it's just football. It's not,
Right.
there's really not much different. It's just really just like, hey, exciting, new football, spring league. What can you do? Yeah, it's like NFL Europe or exactly what USFL was kind of like sanctioned, the second version of it by the NFL and what have you. Yeah, and I said, again, my point was like, attack the refs. Attack the like, they can't celebrate.
Yeah.
Attack that part of the NFL. You know what I mean? That's fine, but yeah.
So I'm sure we'll be talking more about the XFL as the year goes by. Also, just them talking about like how they're going to pay more. That never ended up happening. So that was funny. Edge and Christian versus the Dudleys. This is a very interesting segment. First time in weeks that you mention that Edge is engaged to Val Venus' sister, Lana. So that's hinted at again. Although, storyline wise, Edge and Val Venus are in two different universes right now. But I guess it gives Edge a little sympathy. Like,
although you should temper that a little bit. They're in two different universes now, but I think because you have your future mentality a little bit, if I might add. At the time, you wouldn't really exactly say that. At the time, you know what I mean? You have this, you have hindsight now. We're like, oh, Val Venus and Edge, look what happened. And he, you know what I mean? But at the time, you wouldn't go just like, he's on the, you know what I mean? He did wrestle the opening match, with lose it to Angle, who's hot. You know what I mean? So it wasn't exactly, sometimes I look at that like, oh yeah, wasn't exactly the attitude, that you'd have. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
See, now you're an omnipotent future overlord looking back, with all your powers.
Right,
it's not
right.
exactly fair sometimes, but.
Yeah, there could have still been a match down the line. That's fair. Dudleys have huge heat now. Like they're over. That's it. They're in, so to speak. Like and also I think a big part of it is because how much or rather the announcers talk about how dastardly they were to put Terry through the table. How you have all these other wrestlers talking about how we might not see Terry ever again, and all this stuff. And I think that really made them intimidating and threatening.
Yeah, and it would kind of perfectly work. They got the ECW rub, they made their, it's like they retained that. They came from me, and it's like, oh, these hardcore hoodlums, but they can wrestle, and and they kind of just transferred their heat perfectly, I think.
Absolutely, yeah. And so at one point, Bubba grabs a chair, and the ref was like, "What do you can't have a chair? Get that chair out of here." The finish sees Bubba grabbing Edge, going for a Samoan drop, but then he seemed to tweak his knee or his leg or something like that, and falls down and rolls to the outside, leaves Devon to wrestle for himself, and Edge and Christian double team and are able to get a pin and the win on Devon Dudley. They run off into the crowd. EMTs come out to check on Bubba. He gets put on a stretcher. He's asked, "Does it hurt?" And all of a sudden, Bubba breaks character. "No, it doesn't hurt." Bubba snaps, grabs BB, one of the EMTs. He says, "I've been waiting for 3 days to put you through a table." BB is fighting for her life, smacking Bubba. It looks like a shoot. Looks like she's really smacking him. He's no selling.
She is really smacking him because I'm sure he said, "Whatever you do, really smack me."
Yeah. I'm so impressed at how quickly Devon was able to set up this table. Like this happened in like less than a minute. It looks so good. And then boom, huge table shot. Crowd goes apoplectic. Bubba is in his trance. Edge and Christian come to save BB at this point. And they even get a kick in on Bubba, who no-sells it. He's still in his trance. And then Devon fends them off with a chair. And finally snaps Bubba out of it and gets him out of the ring. Huge heat for this.
Yeah. And sometimes you realize like, oh yeah, the trance, that thing is growing. That gimmick or whatever you want to call it is like, oh, that's worth more than a victory. Victory, who cares? You know what I mean? You know what I mean? It's one of those cases where like, oh, they lost. Oh, and they really got more heat and advanced themselves. You know what I mean? In the
right, everyone wins
storyline or stature.
Yeah, because Edge and Christian look like the better wrestlers, but the Dudleys look like these crazy guys who like they don't even care about winning. They just want to hurt people.
Now you said he broke character, but what you're saying is he broke his double work character.
Right. He was
back to his single work character.
He was working his injury, and then he was like, "No, I'm not injured. Got you, haha."
Right.
He fell for it. So that was it. That was great. We have Scotty 2 Hotty against Dean Malenko. And you really got to establish Dean Malenko here, because again, most of the crowd has never seen the Iceman, the man of 1,000 holds, wrestle. So you establish his moveset. Scotty is super over. I'm so impressed. Like, it's been like 2 months, and they're way over. Crowd loves them. I think also this just shows that like most like the casual fans of that era would be considered hardcore fans today, based on how much they were able to follow along with the story.
And even we talked about it too. It's like you go through the 50s and the 60s and there's dance moves. You know what I mean? Or the fucking Charleston from the 20s. There's a dance move involved that people want to see. So it's really, sure, it's pro wrestling, it's all that, but there's some of that involved too. That's just like, you know, dance crazes are just a weird fucking, you know, human phenomena, Americana phenomena, you know, that people just love to see. So people are just the worm. So he's, you know, he just gets to be the bearer of that, you know, super fucking supercharged thing. I don't know, you know, it's crazy.
It's incredible.
That's a huge part of it, because they just see him and like, we want to see the worm. And
I think I feel like it extended his career a little bit, because he didn't have to rely on you know, like high spots or anything. He just had to do his little dance and a basic move set.
And something, it just gets so explosively popular, you just ride the wave. Because really, when you break it down, what kind of move, if you started to like, hey, my finisher is this, you're going to need to sell for about, with your shoulders to the mat for 1 to 2 minutes. While I look to the crowd,
right.
What? You know, that would never. But then it just gets so huge. It's like, yeah, fine, fuck it. You know what I mean?
But these two are wrestling. This is the work rate match of the night. Malenko's working the leg and knee of Scotty because, of course, as Michael Cole tells us, his finisher is the Texas Cloverleaf, which he's working to set up. Malenko's so great. It's going to be exciting to watch him work here for the next few months. Scotty does do the worm here, and again, biggest pop of the match. Scotty goes to the top rope. Malenko distracts the ref, and Eddie Guerrero, who's down there seconding Malenko, gets on the apron and throws Scotty 2 Hotty off the top rope. Scotty falls to the mat. Malenko gets the Texas Cloverleaf and gets the win. This is not a clean finish. These Radicalz are dang dastardly. They don't play fair.
One could argue that Eddie Guerrero was merely assisting Scotty 2 Hotty. What was, you know,
assisting?
Yeah, or, you know, maybe he was trying to help him down. Or maybe
we have another Cool Taz promo. It's interesting this kind of reset you're doing here with the mood is about to change. Footage of him in not a graveyard, but like some sort of dump or I don't know, somewhere in Red Hook, let's say.
You know, look, we've got a. Yeah, I don't know. You got to get with Pasbani. His announcing is just. Here's Taz. He's in, I don't know, graveyard.
Dump.
Some kind of dump.
The mood is about to change, says the graphic. We have the New Age Outlaws against Cactus Jack and The Rock. Everyone in this match is so over. The Outlaws get huge response for their intro. Crowd is with them, and Cactus Jack comes out. He gets some promo time, which is really nice. He says it's 17 days until the biggest match of his career, which is the Hell in a Cell against Triple H. And tonight might not be Hell in a Cell, but it will be hell to pay. Bang, bang. Excellent.
Yep.
The Rock's music hits, and the crowd is on their feet. They stay on their feet for the whole match. Every second of this match, the crowd is hot. It's wild.
Yeah.
Like every comeback, every tag, everything, they're just going nuts the whole time. And of course, a big part of it is these four guys know how to work. They know how to extract those reactions from the crowd.
Yeah. Timing is like supreme. Just, you know, the little things you forget, like, oh, yeah, everything's, you know, they don't have bad matches during this whole time. No botches,
No botches. No, everything is, even if it's a botch, it works. It works into the match.
Incredible.
Also, I think a big part of that with the no botches too is like they're getting all of this practice on the weekend loops. This is the 4th day of their loop. Right. These guys are probably working already on the house shows, so it's like they know how to work with each other. Everyone here has been working. In this era, I feel like, nowadays they don't really do house shows, so you don't have that much ring time with your opponents to be as smooth.
Good point.
But ultimately, I think that's a good thing. These wrestlers need a little more rest than they were having in the Attitude Era. So The Rock is about to get a pin on Road Dogg. Gunn tries to stop it. Rock moves out of the way, and Gunn elbows Road Dogg. Crowd reacts huge. Rock hits the rock bottom. About to get the win. The crowd is chanting along with him. 1, 2. Billy Gunn pulls out the ref. Cactus Jack goes over to stop Billy Gunn, getting the ref's attention. The ref is telling Cactus to go back to his corner while Gunn sneaks around, grabs a title belt, gives Rock a belt shot. Is this the end of the match? 1, 2, kick out. Big reaction for The Rock getting a kick out. Great.
What's going to happen?
Outlaws are working heat on The Rock, and the crowd is chanting for Cactus Jack, who is, of course, the person that needs to be put over in this match because he's the one in the main event. The heat lasts for about 2 minutes, and then a big hot tag to Cactus. Total mayhem. All 4 guys are wrestling around the ring. The ref is nowhere to be found. Cactus grabs a pipe from the outside, hits Road Dogg with it, goes for the pin. Ref runs in. 1, 2. Cactus picks up Road Dogg. He's like, no, I'm not going to win like that. Gives him a spiked pile driver. And then gets the win. Excellent. Great way to put over Cactus Jack leading up to his title match coming up at the show. And of course, he had to win here, which is why it was non-title.
And also, it's something's hot when you can say non-title and no one feels ripped off. It's kind of like still, even though it's a huge show, it's like, this isn't a playoff game. This isn't a pay-per-view. You know what I mean? There still is that kind of distinction, which I think gets blurred a little today. Like, I don't know, it's a PLE, but okay. Even then, I was stunned in the whole Attitude Era when they added Smackdown. I started to think, wow, these shows have to be designed kind of like pay-per-views, except the timing element for, TV. But I kept thinking it's got to be oversaturated. Why are people going to pay for these monthly pay-per-views when they get so much 3 hours of Raw and SmackDown and all this? And I was just convinced it's going to just flatten out. And it just didn't. It was crazy. You had whole families there like, we're spending, we got to get every pay-per-view and we watch 5 hours a week. It was just incredible.
I mean, you were giving them stuff to sink their teeth into, so
it defied logic. Yeah.
What's wrong with you people? Get a life. Go watch something else. Go watch Friends.
What's wrong with you? Pat Patterson used to always he'd come out and he would look at the audience sometimes and he would elbow me and go and you know what? They can vote too. Shake his he'd always say that. The disturbing thing is they can vote. A little heel crowd work from Pat Patterson.
To an audience of 1.
Yeah.
Gangrel and Luna versus Albert and Jackie. Something must have run long because this was way too short. This was like a minute and a half.
That's a good point because sometimes you got to bring that up for behind the scenes aficionados. Some people man, it's so difficult, the timing. A lot of times it'd be like, okay, here's your production meeting. And that was always Bruce Pritchard, he'd do the times. That seems to be about a 4-minute segment. This seems to be a 5. Go to the agents and everyone work it out. Sometimes it would be a little malleable, maybe you need a little bit more for this or as we're working it out. Fine. Things go long, so suddenly someone's like, okay, we're running through our 3 minutes. What? It's now a minute? Oh, we got to change on the fly. Or IFP ref, go home. What? But I've got to, sometimes you'll see things that people will look at and that was flat and that was kind of whatever. And then behind the scenes, you have no idea how good they were to just pull that off because it went from a 4 to a 2 on the way out. And, so many aspects like that where, you can look at things and they didn't shit the bed. That was a miracle. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think a lot of it is with the talent too. They're
without
pros.
a doubt. Yeah, without a doubt. So
especially like with the talent in this ring. Like some of them have been in wrestling, like Luna and Jackie in this match. So it's Gangrel and Luna against Albert and Jackie.
Luna Albert's since probably birth.
Yeah, exactly. Like both her and Jackie have almost 2 decades of experience now. So it's a quick match. Luna gets the win after giving Jackie a DDT. Like there's like 4 spots in this match, maybe. Luna gets the win. Albert immediately runs in and gives Gangrel like a slam or something. And it's interesting that Albert is still walking around with his piercing suitcase. He's still working the piercer gimmick. And no sign of Boss Man, even though they've been feuding on Heat.
Right.
Also, no sign of Big Show on this episode. Maybe he needed the day off.
Yeah, I can't remember. But I like a lot of that Albert stuff. It sucked because I was really pushing that, like, oh, he should be like the S&M weirdo. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And do all this. And he was all for it. And then it kind of got squished. But it never was like, no, it was like, remember I told you, like Kevin.
It was like, we'll get to it.
Well, or people don't really know that, stuff, do they? And I'm like, of course they do.
So teach them.
And also, it was like, it was one of those things that sucked where sometimes I feel like, just say no. I can deal with a no, but don't give this hem and haw kind of thing. So
interesting. So I wonder
and also with the wrinkle of like, oh, you're getting too weird, and the old L. Brent Bozell and that kind of stuff, and PG-13 kind of damaged potentially some of that S&M piercing Albert stuff. He had to navigate those waters. See. So
can't let the bozo have more ammunition.
Well, and also, frankly, you go to 3-4 weeks and you're kind of like, okay, Albert, hey, what about that? Oh, yeah, let's keep that alive. As a lot of things, you're like, oh, right, we mentioned that again. Why wasn't that mentioned? Fuck, just
yeah, like there was something a few weeks ago where he was like, planting the seeds of being a submissive, oh, I like being punished. Yeah, punish me. And like he completely dropped it.
Yeah, and not because of me, because I wanted to be like, yeah, that's huge. And I thought like he should come out with a mistress who is his master, and even chain and on and on and on, and like and have a mini and a gimp costume, and it's like and no, well, all right.
And I feel like for the time that would have been very cutting edge, because I feel like that was in the zeitgeist. Yeah,
it would have been huge, and also you have. Anything that has like a weird faction that has internal strangeness, he could lose because his mistress was punishing him to lose, or what? There's just so many potentials, and
he wants to lose to get punished by his mistress.
All kinds of stuff, and that was kind of sometimes the sucky part of like, hey, I think this is a good idea. Oh my God, this guy looks the part. Oh, he's into it. He's so ready. Oh, we could do this. We could do that. Yeah, I don't know. Well, why not? Oh, people don't know it. Yeah, they do. That's ridiculous. The censorship thing. So, just didn't. It suffered, in my opinion. Oh, well.
We have Rikishi versus Chris Benoit next. And this is like, I haven't really watched Chris Benoit matches since he murdered his family and killed himself. The only time before this that I watched it is I briefly did a Nitro review podcast, and I was watching some of his WCW matches. And much like then, I will say now, man, this guy was a great wrestler. It's a real shame that his real life completely made it so it's awkward to go back and watch his stuff because he was very good at it.
Well, he was so good. He was one of those guys that, he wasn't like the tallest guy. He certainly, had physical stature, but he was so good that just by him, top to bottom, locker room, office, oh, Benoit's coming over. Okay, slot him into like a top spot of matches immediately. He wasn't known for incredible promos or all that. His physical, abilities inside the ring made him over with everyone. And it wasn't even like maybe the crowd would influence it. It was more like the office and the locker room and everyone like, oh yeah, that's where he belongs and he'll do that because he's just that good. And people even said when he came over, like, "Ooh, can you imagine building one day to like an angle Benoit? Holy shit!" And it did happen
very soon. And they were actually. They had quite a feud, I would say. But to your point, even like Benoit is already being slotted higher than the rest of the Radicalz. Like you could tell he's like the leader. And he never had to, like, I guess none of these guys really, but he never had to eat crow for coming from WCW, like how Jericho did, and Taz even, how like, oh, they're just, they made their name somewhere else. They have to prove themselves here. Like Benoit is proven, he didn't have to prove himself. Like he's in. Yeah. I know. I mean, to be fair, he came in the WCW World Champion. He was never pinned for that title before he came over. So you are getting one of the top guys in WCW. So it's Benoit versus Rikishi. This was really, really fun. This was I'm surprised how well they gelled together because because of the size differential. But it was really fun. Pretty short though. Both guys teased doing their top rope finisher. First, Benoit teased doing the headbutt. Rikishi gets up, gets out of the way. A few seconds later, he has the advantage and is pulling Benoit into another corner to do the bonsai drop. Just as he's teasing the bonsai drop, the three Radicalz not in the match come in and they attack. No finish here. Clean finish. Smart Mark very upset. Too Cool also come out and there's a scuffle. Rikishi belly to belly suplexes Saturn, scare off the Radicalz, and then
the three Radicalz.
Too Cool make everyone forget about the lack of finish by giving everyone what they truly want: a dance break.
Yeah. It was going to happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
it was a huge problem. Like now we're like 3 weeks into these dance breaks. I'm starting to get over them as a viewer, looking back. But in that moment, I could see how it was very exciting. And especially if you're in the arena, it's like one of the things you have to see. You have to see a rock bottom. You have to see the worm, and you have to see them dance. It's one of the hits now for WWF.
Yeah. And it's a dance craze. Bizarre. Like the twist. Come on. Like a fucking decade of like, just a guy going like, hey, when I go like this, why is that such a phenom? So there you go.
WWF WrestleMania 2000 is just 8 weeks away.
Ooh.
Do you have any semblance of a card yet for WrestleMania?
As usual, always, but it's always subject to change. But gosh, not really.
Did you think like, okay, well, Foley's going to lose at No Way Out and then Triple H will face The Rock and Mania? Was that the idea?
Well, that's kind of always there. You know what I mean? In like how you build, you know what I mean? You kind of have these top players and like, how can we build something? But everything's also, subject to change. And sometimes it would just be like, Vince saying and afterwards, like, we're probably going to, move towards that. And also weighing like, how's Austin and the Undertaker? Are they able to come back? No, and things like that. So it's all pretty fluid. And the great thing about this era too is like, just change it, bring it up in a week. You know what I mean?
I really did appreciate how willing to pivot you are during this era, and it usually works. It's usually the right move. Yeah, like whatever you pivot to ends up being a legendary moment that people still talk about.
Yep. And I do remember also in this Smackdown that that was one of these cases where what was his name? Oh, was introduced to like, oh, here's Lita. They're high on her, and this guy
S.A. Rios.
Yeah, who at the time was Papachulo or something.
Oh yeah, Papachulo, yes.
But he was Isai Morales, and I think he debuted with that name, at least American, at this heat, I believe. But he was previously or the week. But that was I think that was one of those things like, oh, we're high under them. Like, hey, let's give them a little deal on SmackDown, or I mean on Heat. And so, one of my weird side favorites, I think they faced Gilbert.
You're correct.
Yeah.
S.A. Rios with Lita defeated Gilbert to win the light heavyweight championship. I forgot that Gilbert was the light heavyweight champion. Also, I was just thinking about this because I remember that Dean Malenko eventually wins the light heavyweight title. And I'm like, where is this light heavyweight championship? Like, it's been established. I remember it was like Taka and Brian Christopher and Scott Garland a year prior, but like nowhere to be found.
They just come and go just for like, I don't know, like
So here are the Heat results before let's quickly sidetrack the Heat. before we get to the final two matches. The Heat this week, which airs after SmackDown but was recorded before SmackDown, it's D'Lo Brown with the Godfather defeating Mosh with Thrasher. So again, Godfather not on SmackDown because of the concerns, although he's been on. Viscera defeated Funaki. I'm sure that was a great match. Big Boss Man defeated Mark Henry with Mae Young. S.A. Rios defeated Gilbert to win the Light Heavyweight Championship. And Taz beats Joey Abs. Oh, so that's interesting.
Yeah, and even then, like I said, it seems now like, you're relegated to Heat, but that really wasn't too much of the attitude for me.
Heat, to be clear, Heat was getting the same ratings as Nitro at the time, so people were watching Heat.
Sure, and also you could work things out in Heat, and you can kind of have a little like flexibility, and it was kind of fun, and so that was the attitude. And like I said, it was often Michael Hayes and I like, okay, what's left? Let's do Heat, and this was a fun thing of like, well, yeah, why not? Well, okay, let's make a weird thing. Because it also went into your video bank for later if you want to, Lita, this happened a while ago. You have that footage. So Heat, had a great spot. And then, I don't know, for me, I always cracked up at, usually it's that I wasn't a fan of like, we're going to shit on the other the other organization and mimic them with something, but Gilbert was
amazing.
The exception to the rule. And then when Goldberg came out with the sparks, but Gilbert had the fire extinguishers and he gets scared by him.
Yeah, he's just coughing. He can't handle the fuse.
Just like, Gilbert.
So a little more color to the thing. Gilbert cut a promo saying he had been champion for 15 months and is issuing an open challenge. And then S.A. Rios answers the challenge. I remember Rios was so exciting to watch because he was a true cruiserweight, and WWF didn't really have cruiserweights. They didn't have that kind of action. You still, unfortunately, had to rely on WCW for that. And not unfortunately. I mean, like, you're a fan. You're watching everything. But, WCW had the luchadors, but it was cool that S.A. Rios was brought in. And Lita was great, too. She helped him win the match behind the ref. Oh, no, after the match, she did a top rope moonsault on Gilbert, which was cool.
And so you remember this excited the live crowd before you even like saw SmackDown,
right?
So the people at they got their money's worth. So you got these like ring apron says Sunday Night Heat comes out and then like, we saw a weird title change. Who's this? A debut. We saw all this kind of stuff, and then like now it's time for SmackDown. They're like all heated up. So
back to SmackDown, we have the Hardys taking on Head Cheese. Head Cheese is over. Crowd chants Head Cheese during the match. Everything is over. There's nothing that is not over here. The crowd wants to play along with the show, not against the show, which I feel is something that like a decade ago, the crowd always wanted to play along against the show because they were so bitter about the booking. Here, they love the booking. They're going with it.
Yeah, that should be the phrase for the Attitude Era, where nothing is not over. Nothing is not over. It's true.
The crowd chanted for Head Cheese at some point. The Dudleys eventually run out and hit Jeff Hardy with a chair behind the ref's back. Unbelievable. Blackman plants Jeff Hardy on his knee. Al Snow hits a huge leg drop, like a modified version of the demolition finisher, but from the top rope. So it looks much more vicious. Mm-hmm. And Head Cheese get the win with the assist from the Dudleys. I guess they need it more than the Hardys in this particular moment, even though this was not a clean finish. And Al is egging on the Head Cheese chants, and Blackman was like, will you stop? So I like it. Got him over.
Yeah.
Backstage, Crash tells Hardcore Holly that they've been challenged by Chris Jericho to a handicap match. He said he could beat the both of them with one hand tied behind his back, as long as it's no DQ. Hardcore Holly's like, is he stupid? Of course, let's do it. I'm in. This is great. Jericho comes out. Welcome to Austin is Jericho. Does his whole shtick. Crowd loves him, is with him, and he already has his hand tied behind his back. Hardcore Holly comes out, and we learn he's in the movie Operation Sandman, Warriors in Hell, which airs later this week on UPN.
Yeah. I love
I looked it up, and the only notable actor in this is Ron Perlman. It is so obscure that it doesn't even have a Rotten Tomato rating.
How funny.
But
of course,
you can
nowadays
watch
there's
it.
so many things that are so obscure that are like, what?
Yeah.
At least it was a proper made movie with Ron Perlman.
It's true. But yes, nothing about.
Is it a franchise? Operation Sandman. I love it. There's so many elements already so confusing. Operation Sandman : Warriors in Hell. What? What's happening? A lot of things already happening. I'm confused.
Yeah, it doesn't say if there's another Operation Sandman. It looks like this was the only one. The IMDb rating is 4.2 out of 10. So
I just love Operation Sandman. I'm confused. Oh, Warriors in Hell. Oh, that does it?
Oh, why did you say that?
Yeah. Why can't it just be Warriors in Hell? Or Operation? I don't. Well, okay. I guess they know what they're doing.
Yeah. It ended up working out fine.
Maybe can we review this next week?
Do a watch along? We just watch it, book it ourselves.
Special bonus.
So Jericho comes out, the Hollies come out, and they have the complete advantage here, as they should. It's a 2-on-1. But if you recall, it's a no DQ match. So what do we hear? We hear the Acolytes entrance theme. And then the crowd knows what's about to happen, and they love it. The crowd goes nuts for the Acolytes. Another act you've gotten over within a month. Not that they hadn't been over, but this is a new level of over.
This gimmick is over. This Acolytes.
Yeah, the gimmick is very over.
It's
the
solid. Crowd, we get it.
And what I like about it too is typically hiring, hiring heavies would be a heel action, but you're flipping the script here where the faces are hiring.
It can be anyone. That's what's so fun. It can be anyone. Yeah.
Yeah.
They can be knights in, shining armor or devious. It doesn't matter. It's all money. It's America.
And it's wonderful because you don't have to give them the titles now. They're their own thing. They're their own little corner of the universe. Yeah.
And anytime you can get any piece of music, whether it's the Austin Crash or something, that when you hear it and then the announcer goes, "Oh no," and that's golden over.
Yeah, they throw Hardcore out of the ring, destroy Crash, give him a power bomb, and Farouk gives him the Dominator, which is one of my favorite finishes. And then Jericho gets the easy win. Acolytes walk out. Job well done.
Yeah,
great. Backstage, X-Pac is questioning the match with Kane. Triple H says Kane couldn't beat either of them in singles matches, so he definitely can't beat them in tags, kind of quelling X-Pac's concerns. Paul Bearer welcomes Kane out. It's Kane versus Triple H and X-Pac. Triple H attacks Kane at the start. Kane completely brushes him off and then goes to chase X-Pac, who runs out in the crowd. Crowd is so into this. Crowd is super behind Kane. Nothing gets people behind a baby face like a attractive woman cheating on him with a heel. So the crowd was super into Kane.
Yeah.
Right as Kane catches X-Pac, Triple H cuts him off. They double team Kane for most of the match. Kane starts to get control, and eventually it looks like he's about to seal the deal here. Stephanie throws a chair into the ring to Triple H. Triple H hits Kane in the back. Kane no sells. Another DQ finish. A lot of DQs on this episode.
What did you expect?
It feels like a lot of these main events end in a DQ.
Sure. But I mean, handicap match, Kane, X-Pac,
right.
Triple H.
Well, I guess, so here's the thing. In a handicap match, right,
of this magnitude also,
with main event wrestlers, the people with the advantage need to win. Because if Kane won, it would make the world champion look like a chump losing in a handicap match. But if Kane lost,
unless there was some just
shenanigans,
untoward chicanery.
So yes, I understand how you've booked yourself into a corner here, but you could have just not booked the match. Let's be honest.
Yeah, well, gotta book matches.
Gotta book
Kevin
matches.
Nash said that one time. It's an hour before showtime, and everyone's staring at each other. The fuck do we do? And also, but in a smart way, when you're leading to pay-per-views or whatever, you want your more, impactful, clean finishes to be in bigger things. So leading up,
right,
it's all right to have it. And again, we have this theme of we're getting the Radicalz over, and it's a sometimes you can have a little schmaz fest. And might I also add, I don't think anyone, if we panned that whole crowd, and we saw everyone going nuts at the Frank Irwin Center in Austin, Texas. Oh, but we zoomed in on a disgruntled Rob Pasbani. Oh, no, not a lot of clean finishes. People around.
Another DQ. That would be me.
Another DQ. Another DQ question mark, sour face arrow. But everyone around you like, we don't give a shit.
This finish is peak Attitude Era, though. So he no-sells, King grabs the chair and knocks out Triple H. He teases hitting Stephanie with the chair, which the crowd loves. The crowd wants to see it, but then diverts his attention to X-Pac. He raises the chair to hit X-Pac, and who stops him but Tori, his ex-girlfriend, who just cheated on him with his arch nemesis. She stops him. He turns around, and he grabs her by the throat. Give her a choke slam. Crowd gasps. Immediately, every ref in the building swarms the ring to try to stop him. He beats them all up. And then again, grabs her in a choke slam tease, and she's begging off. She's begging off, and he throws her down. He's like, I can't, so chivalrous. Kane is so chivalrous. But no, he can't choke slam her because he wants to tombstone her.
Yeah.
And the pop that hit when he goes for the tombstone was crazy. It was so huge.
A frenzy.
So the crowd goes super hot for Kane, giving Tori the tombstone. It's the payoff to their angle. I wonder if Tori gets written off now because she's injured. We'll see. But
we shall see.
A hot ending to a show which, like I said, was more of a transitional show, but this ending was really, really great and kind of makes it very memorable. And it's a big payoff here. And really, like, for a transitional show, you still had Kurt Angle with a title change to start the show and this big ending angle. So even transitional shows have memorable moments, and
without a doubt. And you know what? It's funny. It makes me think of something really. And I wonder, basically, what you wanted to get, regardless of clean finishes, regardless of anything, booking stuff, was at the end of the show was the crowd out of their minds and entertained. And that was kind of like, and you'd have your post-mortem meeting. That was kind of like everything was okay. That was really the goal always, which I think was great because that energy totally transfers through the TV. So, you wouldn't really break things down so much. It was just like, wow. In your post-mortem meeting, you're like, oh, they were so hot. The crowd was so hot. They were so entertained. They liked it. And then you kind of like go home and figure out like, okay, well, this happens. We can't do too many of this. We need more clean finishes, blah, 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 blah. But basically that was the goal all the time. And that kind of made things a little simpler. It wasn't like, oh, we got to break down what's happening with this, that, and the other, and everyone kind of was happy when, and that's kind of like, the time-honored thing of wrestling in general, like why it changes and why the depths it sinks or whatever happens. It's like crowd reaction rules, the pop rules. So
now I asked if there was a WrestleMania card. Is there a No Way Out card? Because we're now like 2 weeks out. I mean, we kind of have some of the matches. We know it's Cactus versus Triple H, Rock versus Big Show, the 6-man tag, as I mentioned, Radicalz versus Too Cool.
When what date is No Way Out? It would be on
it would be 17 days. So it's like a week and a half away.
And it's on a Sunday?
2 weeks. 2 weeks away. It's on a Sunday, yeah.
Yeah. Probably have that card nailed down on Friday.
So after the show, you're nailing down the card and then spending...
No, the Friday before the Sunday. I'm not making a joke.
So if No Way Out was 17 days away, you're saying you would have had the card finalized in 15 days.
Yeah, well, no, there'd probably be some things that would change from that 15th to the 17th day. Yeah.
I mean, and in your defense, you didn't need a card. Yeah. The pay-per-view is going to be bought. People are in.
Yeah.
It's much easier now when everything is working. It became a problem 4 years later when business was down, and then you really did need a card and needed to push stuff and really had to, which is interesting too, because at that point they were doing more than 12 pay-per-views. I think they were doing, with the brand split, sometimes 2 pay-per-views a month, which was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because it's like you're getting half a roster for the same cost as a full pay-per-view. Like,
yeah.
I mean, I had a box, so I didn't pay for it. So I watched them all, but I couldn't imagine like who would be a hardcore fan spending $80 a month on pay-per-views. I agree. Just for WWF.
And to me, like I said, that real, like anything, that competitive nature. Look at football, the AFL and then and the NFL at the time, that's a real rivalry. But once one subsumes the other, there's, like no one really gives a shit now about AFC versus NFC. And so once WCW was purchased, I never bought any of that rivalry, like Battle of the Brands. I just didn't give a shit. It was like kind of blue versus red. And sometimes even when they had the draft, that was like one of my least favorite things ever. It'd be like, oh my God, he's going to, and they just have that excitement level every time. And then like, you're just like, so, and then by the 5th pick, they'd be like, oh my God, you're telling me Kane's going to be on Smackdown? Yeah. Just like none of that worked remotely for me at all. So,
well, a lot of what happened here worked for me, and things are getting even crazier.
Nice segue.
Thank you. Next week is going to be even crazier. I believe next week is when Taz wins the ECW World Title.
Yeah.
And then we have the ECW champion against the WWF champion on SmackDown. So that's going to be really cool. And lots of every week something crazy is happening. Like this is the peak of the Attitude Era, as I mentioned at the top of the show. So we are knee deep in it, and
we're knee deep and it's rising. We're knee deep in the Attitude Era floodwaters that are rising. How's that?
And there's no relief.
Yeah.
As always, please give us your feedback. Please. TFTAttitudeEra@gmail.com. Follow us on social media. We're on YouTube, we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter.
Social media. Strong name.
And until next week, we'll see you for another Tale from the Attitude Era.